and then turn it over to Jacob Payne, our principal planner.
Great. Thank you, Shauna. So as Shauna said, I'm Jacob Payne. I'm a principal planner with the City of Tempe's Community Development Department. And I'm project managing the Apache character area update, which is going to be taking place this year. So the purpose of this meeting, I'll just go through the process and purpose of what character area planning is. I'll talk a little bit about the current Apache character area plan, which was adopted in 2016, and get into some details about the Apache area. We'll go over some examples that kind of show how character area plans are implemented and some of the changes that have happened during the 9 years that the character area plan for Apache has existed. And then we'll just kind of go over some high level visioning questions that kind of are, they're rhetorical, but to kind of get the idea rolling about what type of feedback we're looking for in this process before moving on to talking about our next steps from here. And then we'll open it up for some question and answer. So character area processes. So in case you haven't heard of them yet, the City of Tempe utilizes character areas. There's 8 of them. This is a map showing those. So these were something that we came up with back in 2014 with our General Plan 2040 at the time. The idea is that distinct areas of Tempe have unique character, and these are plans that we created to try and maintain that and encourage retention of it with new development and any projects. So right now we're actually finishing up character area 2, which is shown there in that purple on the west side of town. And once we do that, we will have adopted plans for all 8. So what we're doing now is revisiting some of the older ones to revamp them and revise them, make sure that they're still current. And we're starting with Apache. So that's character area number 4 over there in the purple. After this one, we'll go back and start revising some of the other ones as well. So character area 4, Apache, this is the boundaries of that area. So of course it follows kind of the Apache corridor going east from Dorsey all the way into Mesa, and then includes some of the city of Tempe north of University between McClintock and Evergreen. So I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but this is from our general plan where we created the idea of character area planning. So the concept is that these places contain common design, land use, and characteristics that make them distinct from neighboring areas. So some of those things that we're considering are the age of housing, the styles of architecture, those patterns of development, and then materials, land use, landscaping as well, and then kind of drawing those boundaries where they felt natural, using landmarks and physical barriers to get there. So what character area plans are, they're high-level documents. It's mostly just vision for what we want the area, what neighbors want the area to look like in the future. And their contents are policy. So these are going to be recommendations and guidelines that we put out there that will inform future planning efforts, future implementation, as well as provide guidelines for new development to try and conform to the existing character that's already established. So these plans contain some background and history about the culture in the area. The 2016 plan includes some of that, which I'll go into later, but as part of this update, we want to really expand upon that. There's lots of pictures taken in the area, so we do that through identifying key features, doing a visual survey of the type of development and architecture and housing that exists. Then that 4th bullet, those are kind of the meat of character area plans, those design and planning principles. So I've got some examples of what that looks like in the current Apache plan, but those are the individual line items for things that we'll be making recommendations for moving forward in the area. Other things about character area plans is they're consistent with broader objectives and goals for the city of Tempe. And we really want these plans to be based on the consultation with the community and make it a collaborative effort to make sure that the contents in there reflect what priorities and values that the community holds. So the purpose of character area planning is really as a reference and a document that we can have on file that really communicates what we've heard from community members. I said we use it as a reference, so whenever we get new development projects, it's always a standard for us to refer any developers or architects to these documents so that they can modify their design and make sure that it's consistent with the character and the aesthetics of the area. We also use it internally as to kind of point us in directions for investment decision making, or when we work on other projects, we use this as kind of a baseline to see what types of aspirations and things we've already kind of put out there, and then look for ways to get more regulatory documents that get a little bit more teeth to accomplish the goals set out in these plans. So this is kind of a recap. It's a very high level document that's policy, non-regulatory, captures that vision of what we want and what the community wants the area to look like in the future. Highlight some of those defining traits through its history, as well as some of the built environment. Then there's those guidelines and principles relating to both the design of buildings, but also principles about public realm, open spaces, what the pedestrian experience is going to be like, suggestions about mobility and transit, things like that. We always include this information just to kind of make sure that we're focused on what is in the scope of character area planning. So nothing in these documents is going to be able to change or affect any type of projected land uses or any current zoning. Those are regulatory and they defer to the general plan or to the City of Tempe's zoning and development code. Same for private property rights. Those are things that go beyond the scope of character area planning. And then anything related to specific instances of commercial code compliance, residential code compliance, or anything public safety related also falls outside of the scope of what this document would be able to accomplish. This is just a graphic that kind of shows how we take input and how that goes to inform what goes into these documents. The biggest circle there, that blue one, community, is kind of the big focus that we try to make sure our outreach is tailored towards, hearing from residents, hearing from businesses in the area. We also kind of look at the physical makeup of the area. So things like what housing exists, what type of schools are in the area, what's the transit facilities looked like, and then kind of more abstract things like talking to the neighborhoods, the neighborhood associations, looking at demographics, the economic outlook of the area, and then aligning it kind of with what the general plan vision lays out for. So as I said, these kind of go in tandem with other documents in the city that we've already got on the books, or things that we're working on updating through other processes. Everything's kind of got its own bin and its own niche for what it's meant to accomplish. But this is just a list of some of those other documents that kind of fill the gaps that we'll probably reference in the character area. You'll see them mentioned, as well as things that we'll look at when we create this character area plan, so that we have a unified goal and vision for the area and the city as a whole. So the current Apache character area plan was adopted in 2016. This is a rather short document. It's about 35 pages. There's 18 individual sections, and in those sections, there's 78 of those individual guidelines and principles. So some of the things that's included there are some maps of resources in the area. There's an appendix that includes a recommended plant palette, as landscaping is one aspect that really can inform placemaking and making a place feel unique. And then there's sections in there about the culture and history that's kind of created the spaces that we have now, and gives some context to what was and what moving forward we might want to still pay homage to. These are those 18 themes that were included in the 2016 Apache plan. I won't go through them, but this is still pretty similar to the types of things that we continue to include in character area planning. We'll be getting some feedback later as to which ones of these the community members think are important to maintain and keep, which things we might want to expand upon, and maybe some of these ideas are no longer relevant and we might want to trim them back or remove them. And then here's some pictures of what the current 2016 plan looks like. So on the left there, that's one of the maps included. This one in particular is showing parks and neighborhood associations. And on the right, that's a typical spread of the document where it's showing those principles. So you can see there's kind of like an overall theme. So on this page, those themes are shade and mobility. And then underneath them are individual line items with those principles that we use to help achieve the objective of getting shade or increasing mobility. So with that, I'll pass it over to Lucas Jensen, and he will cover some information about the Apache area.
Thank you, Jacob. Go on. First thing we wanted to look at in the Apache character area is to update kind of the basic demographics of the area as we look to update the plan. Compared to Tempe character area 4, the Apache character area does have a relatively higher population of those minority demographics. Swing to the next slide. The other chart that we've went ahead and updated is the selected socioeconomic data and information for the Apache character area as a reference point to the rest of Tempe. Very similar median age. Household income is a little bit lower in this area of Tempe, and it is significantly higher in terms of rental or renters as opposed to homeowners in this area compared to the rest of Tempe. Employment in the area. So there's only a few very large employment hubs in this area. And then there is a lot of smaller businesses throughout the Apache character area. Some of these larger ones that were identified in the Maricopa Association of Governments data, where it was the Freedom Financial Network employer, the UPS, and then Oscar Health. And then those largest industries in this area are kind of the finance and manufacturing industries. Some of the images that we have of character area 4, you'll see on the left, and of the mixed use or multifamily residential uses there, largely kind of around that Apache corridor area. You'll also see on the top middle some of those commercial centers that you'll see in the character area, mostly at larger arterial intersections. Top right and bottom middle are some good examples of public art incorporated throughout the area, one of those being at the light rail station, and then one, a mosaic done on one of those SRP standpipes. And then in the bottom right, some of the kind of less dense kind of single family or duplex style housing in the character area. Some major points of interest in the Apache character area, kind of on the north side, you have Tempe Marketplace, obviously is a very large regional commercial center. A big focal point in this character area is the Escalante Community Center, where we'll regularly host public meetings there, and other community events are held there as well. And then this is also the location of the Tomlinson and Borden Homes historic districts in Tempe that collectively make up the University Heights Neighborhood Association. Other traits kind of that define this character area are kind of its freeway adjacency to that 202 and 101 interchange on the northeast portion of it. It's also the location of the Smith Innovation Hub. There are separate design guidelines for that Smith Innovation Hub that were approved in 2022, so relatively recent. Some of those post-war neighborhoods, older in character. And then along that Apache corridor, it's kind of defined by mixed-use development, and then those transit corridors with light rail running along that. And then, Jacob, am I giving it back to you for the plan implementation discussion?
Sure.
We'll give it right back to you.
Thanks, Lucas.
Yep.
So the next couple of slides, I just wanted to highlight some of the recent developments that have taken place in Apache over the last 9 years. As we probably all are familiar, there's been a lot. So I'll do a couple highlights of some projects and get into detail on a few of them as to how we as city staff use these documents. So one example that we're probably all familiar with is the cul-de-sac development over on Smith and University. So on the right there, these are some excerpts from the staff report of that project when it was going through the planning entitlement process. So as part of our review of new developments, we will use the principles laid out in the character area plan as providing justification for why or why not we might want to support a particular development. So those are, the excerpts from the staff report kind of explaining how some of those key concepts and principles from the Apache plan are implemented. So one that I'll highlight here, the idea of pocket parks and parklets. So, it's noted that in the cul-de-sac development, there's public spaces that are provided, plazas within the development, and there's encouragement for those spaces between the buildings. So, as one example, another example, the Rio East apartments, I think they're known as the Alyssa, and then some of that commercial development that's there as well. So just some more justification that came from city staff when reviewing it, making sure that there's compliance with the character area plan. So one here that I'll highlight is that streetscapes, where along Rio Salado, this particular development was including that deep landscape buffer along the street, which, was thoughtfully designed so that in the future, when we get around to a streetcar expansion potentially, there's still ample, room for pedestrians and the streetscape is still well shaded and maintained. And then another project, as Lucas mentioned earlier, the Freedom Rio 2100 office is the largest employer in the area. Noting things like this project is providing some public and private art through the city's art and private development program. So I won't go through all of them since there's a lot on my list, but this is kind of a list of some projects that have taken place in the Apache area over the last 9 years. Certainly some notable ones, but it's kind of been a mix of, some mixed use apartments, new commercial like Spinatos and the Sam's Club that's under construction now. So we'll likely continue to see more development in the Apache area. But this is kind of just a highlight of what's happened in the last 9 years so that you can get an idea of the types of benefits that the character area design guidelines have provided over that time. So the next section we want to move into is to just ask some questions to get the ideas rolling about the character area, what types of things that we want this plan to accomplish, and then what you as community members want the objectives to be. So, things like what aspects of the current Apache character area plan would you change? And to kind of get you in that thought, looking at those projects, how has the implementation of that plan affected the area? What traits of the area or elements of the area that you think should be preserved, enhanced, changed, added, or maybe taken out in order to further improve it? And then, kind of really focusing in on maybe like a high priority item. What is the single most important thing that you want to see change in the Apache area in the future? And then kind of the opposite of that, what is something that is the most important thing that you might not want to see in the Apache area in the future? So from here, this is our timeline. So this is our very beginning of this project. We're right now at the first dot on that timeline with our kickoff for engagement. So we'll be in engagement phase until about the end of summer. We'll do some meetings with stakeholders, so particularly one that has been impactful with development in the Apache area, the Citizens for a Vibrant Apache Corridor. So we'll have a meeting with them later this month. And then we plan to do some pop-up meetings, which we found to be a very effective way to engage with people who might not come to public meetings, meet them at parks or shopping centers where they might already be at. And then we'll also be doing some presentations to city boards and commissions at that point. So by the time we get to late summer, we'll have started a draft for the update with a planned release date in August. So once we have a released draft, that's when we'll return to the community with another public meeting to review the draft plan before revising it and sending it off to the Development Review Commission and the City Council ultimately for adoption later this year in October or November. So right now, in addition to the meeting we're hosting, we're having one later this evening at 6 p.m. at Escalante with the same information. And we've opened up our first online survey for feedback about the Apache Character Area Plan project. So over there on tempe.gov/character areas, you'll find the link to that survey, which will be open through the end of the month. This is our contact information for the project team. So with that, I will open it up to any questions or discussions that anyone has. Thank you.
So if you do have a question, you're welcome to come off mute and ask it, or if it's easier, drop it in the chat.
Hey, Shauna, this is Mark. I got just a quick comment. On the survey that's on that link, when you click on the Apache plan that's hyperlinked in that survey to get a shortcut to it, it comes up with a different plan. It's the Diablo Butte plan. So that I think that link has to be kind of revised on there, or my computer and I am just not tech savvy enough, and I'm making it do weird things. So it's one or the other.
No, thank you. We'll double check that. And if you go to the main page at tempe.gov/character areas and not the survey page, you can link to it from there as well.
Thank you, of course.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Mark?
I think my question is a little bit more, a little higher level in terms of sometimes the name of Apache character, kind of lets you focus in on Apache Boulevard, and you have to kind of dig a little bit deeper to kind of think, well, this is actually applicable to the northeast portion of Tempe, and maybe the ability for a character area to be implemented. Part of that is maybe recognizing how it's named, and I'm curious if kind of renaming it is going to be part of this scope as well.
A great thought. We hadn't considered renaming it, but as part of this process, it's certainly something we could think about.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no other questions then. Again, we'll be at Escalante tonight. If you think of one between now and then, or we're available at the contact information there. Jacob, anything else?
No, thank you for the time.